To me, mediocrity boils down to an aversion of truth. So when I say mediocre, I mean by continuing to say no to truth, whether that's within or without. So by within, that still small voice that says, go have that difficult conversation, go put yourself out there in a new way, go take that course, go take that risk, right? They keep saying no to that and suppressing it. And ultimately, this is what leads to mediocrity. And it's what leads to self-hate and inner turmoil, because that voice doesn't go anywhere. It just gets repressed. And, anything that becomes repressed and is not properly energized and cleared eventually stinks. And that becomes clear in a person's character.
Yeah. God, what a time to be alive. Welcome back to the Tool for This Shit podcast. I'm your host, Angie Sorensen. Welcome. I am so glad that you're here. If you're new, this is an interview-based podcast where you'll find a wide range of topics and guests, anything from women who escape cults, psychotherapists, coaches, divorce lawyers, sex workers, exonerees, and so many more. Honestly, I love my guests. I love doing this. And this is why I thank you for being here. And I thank my guests. The whole thing is just great. I just love it. And when a series is live, I publish every other Monday. And so at the moment now, the series should go on until definitely till end of November. If it goes on longer, I will let you know. So here we go. Oh my God. Today we have Joel and Yerasimos. They have the Here for the Truth podcast. If you are not aware of the podcast, do go and have a listen. They have an incredible wide range of guests, and the topics they cover are, just go and listen to it. Honestly, just go and check them out. And I actually found out about them through a former guest who was here on the pod, and she told me about an episode on there. And then, the rest is history. I've been listening to them. I contacted them. They came on the show, and here we are. And today was all about, daring to be great, what it is to go and do what you love what you do what you call for, living in integrity. And, also talked about how they met and how they created this podcast. And honestly, they are such lovely guys, and they were really, really great and great guests. And I'm just so excited to introduce them to you if you don't know them already. If you know them already, then you know you're going to be in for a treat. So without further ado, help me give a big, warm welcome to Joel and Yerasimos. Let's begin. Welcome, Joel and Yerasimos. Thank you so much both for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's great to be here with you, Angie.
No, I'm really glad we got to make it happen, because I have been listening to your podcast for quite some time. And not every single episode, purely because I need time to process, because you go deep on some of the things, which obviously is not news to you. I'm not, letting you know on anything new. But yes, I think what you do is absolutely brilliant. You're willing to go places where most are quite scared to go. And I think it's not even the case of whether, when we listen, it's not so much like whether we always agree or don't agree on what is said. It's more like the fact that you're open to go to all these places and put yourself out there and have all these incredible guests on. So I really commend you on that. So I'm really excited to have you on today to talk about daring to be great, freedom to do what you love or what you call for, your partnership and what you created together. So, because you've done a lot. And so before we dive in, Joel and Yerasimos, please introduce yourself, where you live and what you do.
Yeah, cool. I mean, usually we only consent to being guests on podcasts where the host has listened to every single episode religiously. So I'll We'll have to recheck the protocols that landed us here on this podcast at this point in time. But
I'm fired. I'm fired. Okay.
let us slide. My name is Joel Rafidi. I'm from Sydney, Australia. I've been living abroad in Mexico for the last 20 months. Let's say I'm currently based in Playa del Carmen, but we'll be moving again in September. And yeah, I guess I'm the co-host of the Here for the Truth podcast. I coach inside our group coaching program, Rise Above the Herd, helping individuals step into, reclaiming their power, into self-reliance, into having greater freedom within and without. And I'm also a conscious rapper and hip hop artist and musician. And so I make music, and I'll have a new album coming out in October later this year. And yeah, basically, I'm on a path of understanding myself on a deeper level and honoring what comes from within so I can create my external experience that's most aligned and most authentic to my true nature. And so through walking a path where I've been able to build self-esteem and learn to say no and get really clear about the things that don't align with me, including relationships, environments, circumstances, etc. And by getting clearer on my self-knowledge and my decision-making process, I've been able to welcome experiences that I feel are really, really resonant with who I actually am. And this is a path that I continue to walk, though the work is never done. I have a wife and I have two young children and a third on the way. And so
Wow.
life is
Oh,
full,
yeah.
and life is dynamic, and there's no boredom, and there's no lack of challenges by any means whatsoever, but it's something I welcome and embrace, and just on this path of constantly navigating how to be a human being and live this human experience with as much mastery and grace as I possibly can.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So much stuff there. I mean, definitely like the saying no and the self-esteem. That's definitely something we're gonna get into because I think that's definitely marrying really well to today's topic.
For sure.
Thank you so much. Your turn, Yerasimos.
Well, I think you could just repeat what Joel said and then use AI and put my voice over it, but subtract obviously location and the fact that he has kids. But other than that, I could align with all that. Again, being a conscious rapper. But for real though, my name is Yerasimos. I live in Topanga Canyon with my wife, dog, 11 chickens, a few cats right now that
Oh,
we have
yeah,
on our
yeah.
property. Originally from New Jersey. I spent most of my life on the East Coast before I moved to California 11 years ago, but my lineage is Greek. My parents were born and raised in Greece. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm first generation in the US. And a little bit about me is I just love learning and I love truth and I love personal development and I'm fascinated by the human condition and I in my life I couldn't settle for the status quo. There was a path laid out before me and after a couple years after college, this is back in the early 2000s, I had a job and I just realized quickly that it wasn't the job I wanted. And so that was the first, I would say, big catalyst in my life to go on a more alternative path. And so that's been, I guess, almost 20 years now. And I'm into personal development, health, um, going down the occasional rabbit hole, really into esoteric subjects that really help you know yourself, accept yourself, and love yourself on a deeper level. And like Joel said, I'm the co-host of the Here for the Truth podcast. We have our group coaching program, Rise Above the Herd. We also co-created our membership community, Friends of the Truth, which is a place for, like-minded people to come and connect with and go deep with and learn from and teach others, through our platform in Telegram and through all the calls we have every month. But at the end of the day, it's like a part of my mission is to support people to really truly step into the person that they became, that they're meant to be in this lifetime. When you
Mm,
peel away the conditioning from family, from society, from culture, and you realize that you're a miracle, that you're one of one, and what do you need to do to really tap into that and to live your personal truth and create a life based on your highest values and go from there. And so, yeah, I love it. I'm very grateful for life. I'm grateful to have connected with Joel in this lifetime. It's definitely I think a once in a lifetime partnership. He's a brother. He's someone who inspires me. I have a deep respect for him, and we get to go on this journey together, doing what we do, and it's only the beginning.
Yeah, I think you guys really found like a really perfect match in you two. And I really love that you mentioned about loving yourself on a deeper level, because I think that's sort of, it feels to me like that's one of the big reasons why we may not fully live the life that we desire, the life that has been sort of like that's inspired to us and that we really want to live, because we may also trust in the process, right? But I think loving ourselves and the self-esteem and really understanding who we are, I think is a big part of that. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's great that you guys are living, in the way that you want to, which is kind of why I've got you on here, because I think it is difficult. I'm just gonna be picking your brain. But before we do that, how did you both meet and decide to do a podcast together?
Well, Joel, you've been telling this story really great lately, so I think you should continue again.
Because
Yeah,
you're
I
on
did. I
different
did.
side of the world originally, I think.
I did tell the
Yeah.
story yesterday, but all right, I'll tell it
So
again.
sorry if I bore you,
You
Joel.
know, how about this? I'll say it, and then you could add some stuff in there. What do you think?
All right, good. No, no, you're not boring me at all, Angie. I just
No,
usually we take turns at this story, and Yerasimos is
yeah.
trying to force me to go twice in a row. So
Well, you did such a good job yesterday, so I really enjoyed it. It was very
thanks.
It's
but
the curse of competence, Joel.
yeah, right,
There you
exactly.
go.
that's
Well,
that's my gene key path is competence. But yeah,
well, how did we meet? Well, I'll have to tell the story, our entire life journey, each one of us that led us to the moment that we
No,
met.
maybe not. We can
I'm,
fast
I'm just
forward.
play. I'm just playing. I'm playing. So yeah, my wife and I were invited onto the Unslaved podcast
Hmm.
with Michael Tazarian and David Whitehead back in early 2020, right as the insanity of the world was happening.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we went on there to talk about awakening somatic intelligence, because that's part of my background as a body worker for many years and studying the nervous system. My wife as well, and we were on a couple times in March and May of 2020, and then Joel came across those episodes and he got value out of them. And I was on Instagram, and as what happens in Instagram, when someone that you don't follow sends you a message, it shows up in your little request folder, like in the top
yeah,
right.
yeah.
And I went in there and I went, who's this guy Joel? Like wow, he watched me on Enslaved. He got value from it. That's really cool. And I like checked him out, and he was, into divination work. He had gone through Michael Tazarian's mystery school. He was a conscious hip hop artist. I liked some of the music that I listened to, and so we had an exchange on Instagram for maybe like a few weeks. We were just kind of messaging back and forth and getting to know one another a little bit. And initially we thought we were going to like jump on some Instagram lives and just start talking about our work that we do as individuals. But we got on Zoom to connect further. And then we both realized we wanted to start a podcast, and we shared values and we had a similar worldview. And so the following week, we got on Zoom again and we just pressed record, and we started talking about our journeys and what it means to walk an authentic path from our points of view. And then we did it again a few days later, and we pressed record again and we did a part two. And then we were like, maybe we should have guests on.
Oh wow.
And so
Yeah,
we had our first guest, Jaguar Heart, on. And then here we are, 193 episodes later,
yeah.
like three and a half years later. And, we've built what we've built. And, it's really been a blessing. And for me personally, and this is why I have so much, respect for Joel, is he has an amazing creative ability. And so over the years I've exposed myself to a lot of different knowledge and information, and I feel like through this platform we've been able to kind of synthesize and integrate, for me, just me personally, a lot of my passions and my loves into this platform, with some of the conversations we have, some of the stuff
Mm.
we talk about in our group coaching program. The same goes for Joel, with his myriad of interests and skills. And so it's just been amazing to be able to take the things that we've learned, that we've grown from, the people that have mentored us, the books that have inspired us and kind of like synthesize it and integrate it and just create something that we think is unique.
Yeah, what a gift. It's so funny. This is like, because I hear almost like this love story. And I kind of love that it started with like Joel sliding into your DMs.
He totally he slid into my DMs at
Yeah.
11:11, just so you know. It was at
Oh, no
11:11.
way. Oh, that's very cute. That's very
He's
cute.
Jake.
That should be a
He's
mug
Jake.
actually on your podcast. He slid in my DMs at 11:11.
Yeah, well,
And
there's
the
a
rest
meme
is
going around
history.
about that, so that's
Oh,
why I
is
brought it
that?
up. The meme that's like a joke, but anyways.
Yeah.
I
No,
mean, it really just is a story that is a testament to the power that comes when you honor your own personal inner authority. Because at that point in my life, I felt very lackluster, very mediocre. What I was doing outwardly was not congruent to my inward experience.
mm,
And like I was driving to work. I was driving to work in a factory job. I just got my forklift license to actually do different work within this factory. And
wow.
I was listening to this podcast with the both of them, and I honored the fact that something within me was like touch base, was like a reach out. And it's like it just single decisions can have huge impacts, and you never know what can be on the other side by following through with those impulses and honoring them. And like even then at that point in time, like I didn't think, how could I have ever known that Erasmus and I will be doing now what we're doing now by me listening to that and me answering that call? Because at that point in time, shortly after that, I had a massive fallout with my workplace, which was a family workplace, and I walked away. And I went on this journey of starting my own entrepreneurial business, which was in the divination realm. So I was doing astrology, numerology, tarot, things of that nature when Erasmus and I really started talking. And I had a family at this time. I remember
Mm,
sitting in the library in South Sydney. I applied for 40 plus jobs, which I was overqualified for in my point of view. And I got rejected by every single one of them.
mm,
And even just again, the like if one of those said yes, like a life could be completely different at this point in time. So I mean, what can I say except there's something deep within you that knows,
yeah.
and we have to listen to that.
Yeah, that is so true. That is so, so true. So, so true. I mean, I don't know if you feel that because obviously you're creative and you're both creative because you have this podcast. Is that sometimes I feel like I always felt this because I used to do stand up many years ago. And
Nice.
I used to always think that inspiration, like, the things that arrive, like the jokes that were there, like already like ready made, I didn't have to work on. To
Mhm.
me, it always felt like it was inspired from above. That's the only way, because I've always felt like it was like given to me. Like it
It
never,
is.
yeah. And I think that's the same thing with like your impulse, like you contacting someone, and look what turned out. I mean, you have a very, very, very successful podcast. By from what I can see, like is I mean, I came across your podcast because someone else told me about it. It was actually a previous guest told me about your podcast. And then you've got your membership and you've got your course. There's a lot, and you living lives that, I mean, what a transformation, Joel. You had just taken your forklift
Yep.
license. You were working in a factory. Now it couldn't be further from that. But that also tells me that, something that's always very true is that you can look at someone but you have no idea what they have to give. Someone could look at you in a factory and going, oh, they'll have like an idea of who you are and your thoughts and your inspirations and what goes on in your head. But on the side, you have all this work on divination and things like that. Like you just never know. And same thing
Yeah.
with you, Yerasimos. I think when you said you had a job in New Jersey, I think, was it in finance or something, wasn't it? Like you were.
No, I worked in the hotel. I grew up in the restaurant business. But then
I did.
I worked in the hotel business. That's what I went to university for at Boston University. And then I
Yeah.
worked for a company. They placed me at a property 20 minutes from my home in New Jersey, where I grew up right after college. And
Mm,
so I was grateful for that because I've lived home. And so I just worked and saved money. And then 2004, it was post 2002. So 2004 came and the Olympics were in Greece. And I just had this thought, this thing that just came to me and says, this isn't for you. You're leaving it. You're packing a suitcase full of books and you're going to your family home in Greece, and you're just going to read and you're going to start the next step of your journey. So like Joel, like all of us, like we have this thing that comes
mm,
into us. And
mm,
do we honor it? It's another reason why I'm such a big fan of human design. And, I've been a student and a teacher for some years now, is like, can we trust ourselves? Or do we allow conditioning to distort our thinking and our behavior and make decisions for us. But when we really understand our unique nature, we can start making more aligned decisions that are going to guide us closer and closer to that life that we want. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy, because there's always going to be obstacles and rites of passage, but it's step by step by step by step.
Yeah. Oh, I hope you're right. I hope you're right. Can I read a passage back from it was one of your email. So I'm on your I'm on your email list, and
Great.
it was an email that was called "No One Can Stop You," and I'm just gonna read a passage because that passage like really touched me, and so I want to talk about this one.
Okay.
So here it goes. We've abandoned. Sorry, this is always weird. I always find it weird to read people's words back to them. So I just need a minute. Hang on. I'm just going to giggle it out. Okay. So we've abandoned our own capacity to be great. Why? Because we're afraid to stand out. We're afraid that if we shine too bright, we too will be shut down. We're scared of embodying the hero because we all know sooner or later all heroes become villains. So first, did you write this together?
No, I think those are Joel's words.
Is it?
Yeah, that was a short essay I wrote. Yeah.
Yeah. Can 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 you expand on the last line, like where it says, "Later, all heroes become villains"? Because I'm thinking of, oh, this is talking about like the Fall Guys, you know?
Yeah. No. Ultimately, the reason that most people do not choose the path of greatness and are afraid of taking the necessary steps to embody their full potential, I don't believe really is because they're afraid of failing or because they're afraid they're not capable. Ultimately, I think it's because of the repercussions that come with what if I succeed?
Mm,
What if I'm greater than I possibly imagine? And what does that mean for the status quo? What does that mean for the quote unquote comfortable life I've built, the familiar relationships, which are actually stagnant and mediocre? Like who, what, who do I have to embody? Like, what do I have to live up to? And when I say ultimately become villains, is because that's the state of the herd, right? Because
mm-hmm,
the mass mind doesn't appreciate greatness.
mm-hmm.
The herd wants to drag those down. It doesn't want them to climb out of the crab bucket, to use that analogy.
Yeah.
They want people to remain mediocre, because when people shine, when people become bright, when they embody their light and become great, then that highlights aspects of themselves which are shame ridden, because they haven't walked that path, because
Yeah.
they've said no in the face of challenges and adversity that could lead to evolution and greatness.
Yeah.
So if choosing to embody your highest potential comes with the cost of being projected upon by those who choose to remain mediocre.
Mm. And by mediocre, you mean just following whatever is expected
But
of them by society, culture, family?
to me, mediocrity boils down to an aversion of truth. So when I say mediocre, I mean by continuing to say no to truth, whether that's within or without. So by within, that still small voice that says, go have that difficult conversation, go put yourself out there in a new way, go take that course, go take that risk, right? They
Mm,
keep saying no to that and suppressing it, and ultimately this is what leads to mediocrity, and it's what leads to self-hate and inner turmoil, because that voice doesn't go anywhere, it just gets repressed. And anything that becomes repressed and is not properly energized and cleared eventually stinks, and that becomes clear in a person's character.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I want to add to that too is that
Yeah.
we see in our culture, you have people that are obsessed with celebrity,
Yeah. Oh
and
my
people
God.
that
Yes.
highly judge it.
That's like a disease. Sorry.
Well, yeah, because on one
It's a
level
disease.
they're
Mm,
projecting their inner greatness, or their
mm,
potential that they haven't lived onto these people, as opposed to just going out there and achieving a certain level of success. Now, I'm not saying all these celebrities and whoever people in the limelight are, you know, incredible humans, but they've gotten to certain places. Whether you're a great actor, like you've worked on your craft, you've put time and energy into um,
mm-hmm.
being something and being someone and going after a dream per se. And so I think a lot of people, they project their own potential onto these people, and then they don't really do anything. They just kind of do the day to day, the mundane. They stay at the job they don't really like. They stay in the relationship that's unhealthy and unconscious. So again, I think that plays into the mediocrity too. Is deep down there is that voice, like Joel said, that's knocking on the door of your consciousness. It's whispering to you, but do you listen to it? Do
Mm.
you take the necessary steps to to do the next thing, because we're in a culture, and more in our modern society, where there's this obsession with short-term gratification.
Yeah.
There isn't like delayed gratification and success, real success of any kind. You're not going to experience that gratification immediately.
No.
The culture incentivizes the rejection of that voice. It gives us every single opportunity and, glittery, shiny possible distraction from paying attention to that voice.
Like, what do you mean? Like, for example, like alcohol, like
Yep.
the
All,
diet,
all
they
the
give
all
you
the
all the sugar, all of that stuff. Like, it just keeps you numb a little bit.
all the ways in which
Mm.
we self-medicate and
Mm.
self-sabotage away from being with who we really are and honoring that voice. So yeah, whether it's alcohol, drugs, porn, sex, social media, chocolate,
Yeah.
it's a whole spectrum and cacophony of
Yeah.
options available. And everyone's drug of choice is different.
And this is
It's
how, yeah, go on, sorry.
Well, I was going to say, it's something that we just have to be mindful of, and something that we talk about often is, what is habitual behavior? What is unconscious that is, again, keeping you from feeling the truth of your reality?
Mm.
Most human beings have an aversion to pain. I mean, all of us don't want to feel pain, and then we go towards pleasure. But
Yeah.
the real question is, maybe there's some pain that is the proper medicine for me, and there's some pleasures out there that I shouldn't be relying on.
Do
You
you
know
have
what I mean? And
do you have an
so,
example of like the pain, for example, that would be good for us?
well, just the pain of like I'm staying at this job for 10 years and I hate it. I don't like it.
Mm.
But I wake up and I just drink 3 cups of coffee just to be able to get to work and just to stay at my job and have another cups of coffee, and then I come home and then I smoke weed and I drink some wine and then I redo the cycle over and over again, as opposed to like what would happen if you were able to be still with what was coming up and bubbling up, instead of turning to substances to to in a sense like regulate yourself, um not ideally, of course,
Yeah.
but to not feel truth, not feel the pain. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I have a memory. Once I went many years ago, like I went through this short term, it was like a short term breakup. This is probably like 20 years ago,
Yeah.
and I just was like spinning, my mind was spinning, and I was like, what the hell, like. And then I went home and I took a big bong hit, and then everything was great.
Yeah.
Oh, life was great. Oh,
Yeah.
everything's fine.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm not saying that in that moment that was the best I needed to do to just kind of chill out. But
Mm.
think about how many people rely on these things and are
Yeah.
doing them all day, all night for
Mm.
years. And all that stuff that is underneath that isn't being allowed to bubble up to the surface to be
Yeah.
like, hey, pay attention to me.
Yeah. This is so
But
interesting. Yeah, go on,
the
sorry.
the the pain, the anxiety, the guilt, the fear, the insecurity, like these are all signposts,
Yeah.
right? Like these also are part of the genius which is calling us forward. But we need to cleanse our perspective and view them with new eyes to really see the wisdom that
Yeah.
they're offering to us, as opposed to rejecting it, rejecting it, rejecting it.
I mean, this is interesting because, like, it's true. Society definitely does not like you to face your whatever emotions comes up, right? So, and obviously, it depends. It varies from culture to culture, but um, like I remember, like I had some really bad anxiety. It was around a relationship I was in, and a lot of it was triggering me a lot, and so I had all this anxiety, and so I reached out and got some help, and this woman was like genius. She basically taught me this method of, she said, like, whenever this happens, you need to find a, like, go home as soon as you can. Don't have any distractions. Don't turn on the TV. Don't lit a cigarette. Don't have alcohol. Don't have a drink. Nothing. Put everything down and just feel the feeling. And there was a whole method to it. And obviously, it's not a method that was just, I can't really remember the steps, but it's something that you have to have someone to that you can talk to after, because it's quite, it can be quite frightening. And it was basically to go really deep into it, really, really deep, and feel the whole anxiety. And it gets really ugly. And she said that, and it's exactly what happened. She said, like, you'll see next time it'll be less charged. And you keep doing the exercise until it just kind of, that thing won't trigger you anymore. And you can sort of like look at it with more perspective. And I think in society now, we sort of very much about, oh, you feel anxiety, have a pill. You feel depressed, have a pill. And
Mm-hmm.
I have been on antidepressant years ago, and I stayed on it for 1 year. I did not want to be on them, but I was so desperate. I was so desperate. And so I did, and I had the experience. But I think to be able to feel your feelings is so important. And something else that came up recently is that, so I stopped drinking 2.5 years ago now. And
Nice.
yeah. And it's not the first time I did, but this is the longest stint. And it served me well. I'm really glad I made that decision. And then in December, there's a reason why I'm telling you this story. It'll make sense in a second. But I think it was right before December, so around November, I stopped coffee, sugar, crisps, all of this stuff just for health reasons. Okay, I thought I'm gonna try this out, and this is what I noticed is that I knew obviously that alcohol is a big culture where I live. I live in England, so it's a big culture of drinking, and no one ever will ask you if you said to someone, "Oh, I'm not drinking water anymore." Everyone's just gonna be like, oh, okay. But if
Yeah.
you say you don't drink alcohol, oh my God, like the questions, oh, why and why and why. And then when I stopped coffee, sugar, and all the stuff, this is what I noticed. It's like everywhere I went, there was temptation. Everything is surrounded around the coffee shop, which has muffins, croissant, chocolate bars. Then you have a pub. Then you walk a bit further, and then you have another place where you'll sell sweets. It's like crisps. It's everything in culture, and the sugar has been the hardest one to give up. The sugar, like the cakes, all of that stuff has been really hard. I had this every day. I had, all of that stuff I had every day before, and is like it's almost like this. It felt like there was this I don't know if you said it, it's almost like it's just this something under the ether that is sort of saying, come, have the sugar, come, feel better now, spend
Mm-hmm.
your money on this, come on, have a coffee, come on, you're gonna crash again in about a couple of hours, then you're gonna come back and have another coffee, come, have a bit of alcohol, come on, I know you had a rough day, you want to cut
Mm.
off the edge. And it's this whole thing to keep us like, I feel like it just really keeps us on. I just did not like to see that. It's almost like I really noticed it really strongly when I stopped the sugar and the coffee. I was like, it's everywhere, and it's so bad for you. And I felt like this is what was really weird when I stopped the sugar was that I noticed that when I had a craving for it, it was like butterflies in my stomach. I was like, it's almost like I was like in love, like that when you just not in love, but when you're first dating someone, the excitement, it was
Mm-hmm.
that feeling. And I was just
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my God, that is evil that they do this to us. That's how I felt. I was like, that's what sugar does, and that's legal. It's just weird to me that, it's just like it's so part of our society. And I feel like it really numbs us down.
It does, it definitely does. I mean, all these
Mm,
substances do. And like I said before, it's about do you have a conscious relationship with it or not? And most people don't. And most
mm.
things are just socially acceptable. Anyone who's probably listening to the podcast, like, I've been off, I stopped drinking alcohol 11 years ago.
Wow.
I was off caffeine and I was off caffeine for about a decade.
Wow.
I didn't have coffee for 10 years, and then like a month ago I had a cafe latte because I was literally like I was kind of over being the person that was like, I don't drink coffee.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
drink coffee. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna have a coffee. Like, like Joel and his family were in town. It was the morning after it was actually my actual birthday. And I was like, I'm gonna have a coffee. And like it felt so good to just let go of like this rigidity that I had around it.
Yeah.
And not that I plan to drink coffee all the time, maybe once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
Now there are certain things that I just aren't right for me. Like I'm not gonna go get a bag of cocaine and blow it up my nose. That's just not. That's there's certain things where I don't
Yeah.
need to be like I'm tired of being the person that doesn't smoke crack and
Yeah,
snort
yeah,
cocaine.
yeah.
You know. But what I'm saying is that like these things are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. They're part of the
Mm.
culture. Society goes here. You don't need truth. Just self-medicate. You
So
don't need
many.
to feel pain. Distract. And
It was definitely self-medication for me. And I think
yeah,
that's where, yeah.
the heroic person realizes these things about themselves and they go, you know what? I want to experience what it's like without these substances.
Mm.
And doesn't mean it's going to be easy.
No, it's
That's
not.
why, like, people who like argue for one thing or the other, I always go to them. I'm like, well, have you ever spent an extended period of time not drinking coffee or not smoking weed or not drinking alcohol? Then your opinion means nothing because you're on one side of the spectrum. You have no idea. Now, if you spent, a year not using a particular substance that you used to, and then you go, oh wow, that was amazing, but I'm gonna have it once in a while, then you have a much more balanced point of view and you know yourself better.
Yeah, yeah. I think
So,
it's about conscious choice, right? Whereas for me, it was just like it was really unconscious. I just kept, piling it down, and I think that it's like it's not. I think for some people, especially with coffee, sometimes for people, some people it doesn't affect them. Like for me, it did, and I always knew it wasn't good for me. But I think it's more, and I may have it again, right? But it's more like it was more for me, like the realization that what it did to me and how much better I felt without it. And the link, almost like that little link from my gut to it, that was just like, ooh, come on, have some more. You're like, come on, have it,
yeah.
have me again. It's like, no, no. Yeah, so
But this is where self-awareness comes into play. What
mm,
patterns, whether
yeah.
it's an external pattern, like we have a certain behavior we do, is it a thinking process? Do we have the ability to self-reflect and to tune into ourselves and be curious about why we say the things we say, why we
Mm,
do the things we do, why we act the way we act? That's the work that goes on forever and ever and ever until this life ends. If
mm.
you're a sincere individual that wants to continue this amazing, great work of self-knowledge.
Yeah, it's what's funny as well is that it's actually made decision making much easier. Because I don't know if you
Mm-hmm.
notice, like even with you, like if you decide on something, is that before it was like, should I have chocolate or should I have crisp? Should I have a glass of wine? Should I have another coffee? Now it's the answer is like no. It makes it so much easier. But
Yeah,
yeah,
well, you're probably more regulated as well, which
yeah,
will
well,
help
I
your
did. I
decision
did it
making
for
process.
Yeah, I did it for hormonal reasons because I found out that blood sugar affects your sex hormones, so estrogen, testosterone. And I was like, oh, well, I don't want to be on HRT just yet, so
Mm-hmm.
let me try the natural way first. And
This is what
that was
happens.
what I did.
Yeah, this is what happens when people get clearer and clearer and clearer on their values. That your decision making process gets clear.
Mm,
Most people are just in this like cauldron of just like whatever's thrown onto them from familial conditioning and society and culture, and it's like this process is of starting to peel away these layers of like, no, 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 that's not what I want. Now this is more true. Joel talks about, I talk about the apophatic process. You find out what is true by first focusing on what is false and what you don't want. So for people out there listening, if you're not sure of how you want to live your life or what your purpose is, start with the definite no's that you don't want. Start there and then see what unfolds from there.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think intuitively, it's much easier to grasp what is not serving us than what actually will serve us at a later point. So for most people on this journey, it's about in the beginning, like creating space for that deeper intuitive voice to be heard and to have, a place on the mantle in your life.
yeah, yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. They do say that as well, like in they say that in dating, like if you don't know what you want in your next partner. If you don't know what it is
Mm-hmm.
you look for, go back and see like what you didn't like, like what was really the
Mm-hmm.
issue in the previous ones, and go, okay, well that's what I want to avoid, and then like what you want. So let's say if someone had a bad temper, then you want someone who's going to be kind and in control of their moods, and stuff like that. So these are like indicators, to show
Yeah,
you
like
what you
like
want.
yeah, like for me, I could never have a partner with feet bigger than me. So, that cut off many people in my initial search.
Yeah, that's an ego issue there, right there. um, so so I want to actually go a little bit deeper into like not deeper like the practicality of like doing actually doing what it is that you love and loving what you do, because as like you said, everything comes at a cost, and things can get hard. And so sometimes, because I think like the big issue or at least what we think is that the money is an issue. I mean, that's definitely something that I think about. Because I've been back in full-time work in corporate world, which is basically I'm selling my soul. I've said it many times on the podcast, so it's not news to, not new to the listeners.
Mm-hmm.
But and I went back in for, I consciously went back intentionally because I needed the money. The pandemic wasn't good for me financially, so I had to go back and be an adult and get some money in. And so, but I think, yeah, I think like sometimes it feels like how much sometimes it can feel like almost like it's something that can only happen to others, or it's something that you need a lot of money to go out and do what you love. I love this is what I love doing, and I love teaching, but the day job is not what I love. Like, I'm literally there for the paycheck, and that doesn't sit well with me.
Hmm.
It serves a purpose and it's been good to me. There's a lot of good things, but it's not how I want my life to be in the next 30, 40 years. And I think that's a place that I know a lot of other people are in too, including colleagues of mine, that I've spoken with, and they also have aspiration. They want more for their lives, um, than what they are. And I think it's something that's like a recurring theme in many people's lives, that we want to transcend something, but something is sort of like it feels like as much of the work that you do, it feels like you'll never catch up to it. It's never gonna appear. What do you say to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, even just that thought that you finished with, it doesn't matter how much work I do, it's never going to appear, never going to appear. Like, where is that coming from within an individual, and why is that voice present, and why is it prevalent? And this has to do with a lot of the scarcity programming that we've all been conditioned with in many ways. It's like, why do we feel as though I'm just pushing against the grain, and it doesn't matter how much I do, that my dreams can never actualize or a shift can never take place? And for me, true reality creation just really comes that back down to basic hermeticism. It's as within, so without. And so I
Mm-hmm.
genuinely believe the deeper work that we do in working with these different programs, working through our conditioning, reconciling our parts, and doing the psychological and spiritual work. Reality definitely shifts outside of us, but obviously it's not ideal for everyone, just for most people, to just like leave their jobs and take the risk and take the leap, and things will work out. But it's like, what's the intention around how our motivations on a day-to-day basis? So, for example, a friend of ours, Jason Christoph, who some people may know, he talks about utilizing your current workplace scenario and
Mm.
reframing it as my dream team. So instead of I'm just going there slaving away for a paycheck, no, I'm integrating this scenario in this workplace as part of my dream team, which is helping me to move towards the next step of having higher value aspirations.
Yeah.
And so are we intentional in our time outside of the workplace in terms of building towards what we actually want,
Yeah.
and what feels more aligned?
Yeah.
I think that, along with continuing to be self-aware and questioning when those limiting beliefs come up, like really doing, where is that coming from? Who said that to me as a child? Where did I pick up this conditioning from? Is it true? And even so many people that live in scarcity, with the I'm not enough, I don't have enough, I can't afford it, I'm not good enough. Like, is it actually true? Like, for many people, they haven't opened up the flow to welcome abundance because they're just living in this paradigm of, I'm too scared to spend, I'm hoarding, I think I need way more in my savings than I actually do need,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, many times when people say, I can't afford this, or I can't do that, or I can't go on that vacation, or I can't take that personal development program, in my experience, I found it true more often than not, that from a practical reality perspective, they can afford it. But when it comes to a psychological thing, they don't think that they can. And so
Mm.
it's working with that scarcity program, which feels so inhibiting, and it feels like we're going to die. Like, ultimately, this is, I won't have enough to live, right? So it triggers a survival instinct with us. But it's about pushing that edge and realizing that, you're not actually going to die. Yes, you actually do have more than you have, that more than you think you need. And on top of that, like, am I willing to go on a hero's journey? Am I willing to, step into the unknown, welcome discomfort, feel all the things, and watch how my reality expands as a result of me entering the cave, as Joseph Campbell said, right? He said, the cave we fear to enter holds the treasures we seek.
Well
Say
said,
that
bro.
saying again.
The cave we fear to enter holds the treasures we seek.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well said, man.
Yeah.
I agree 100% with all that. And to piggyback on that too, is like sometimes an individual needs to just realize they might need to do some foundational certain healing work to even, get to a place of feeling safety within their body, doing a certain level of nervous system work. We did an episode recently with Sarah Baldwin where we talked about this idea that, like, some people don't even have the capacity within their nervous system to go after certain things they want to. These are things
Mm.
that we talk about in our group coaching program, with the nervous system element as well. So um yeah, I think as good, it's different for everyone,
Yeah.
because not everyone, some people could just say, you know what, I'm quitting my job, but some
Mm.
people, they have kids in college, they have bills. It's like, it's not as easy. So
No.
you have to figure out what level of discomfort you're willing to deal with and navigate.
Mm.
And for some people, they just have the ability to just say, fuck it,
Yeah.
and then see what happens, because they're just tired of, what they were doing before. Or let's say, like, especially in the last few years, like someone, was forced to have to take a vaccine to keep their job, and they were like, no, I'm not. And so
Mm.
they like left their job that they had invested 10, 15 years in, and then they started all over again. Not everyone's willing to do that. So again,
Mm.
like, what level of discomfort or inconvenience do you want to bring on into your life in
Yeah.
order to move the needle forward? No pun intended.
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
No.
I
Yeah.
believe that living according to one's true divine will, soul purpose, whatever you want to call it, and experiencing a reality of abundance, I believe these two are intertwined. And so, you know, even to speak from personal examples, it's like, you know, through that 2020 period that we all lived through, in living my truth and speaking my truth and being so open about where I stood and my values and being willing to risk certain long-standing friendships and familial relationships, etc., etc., etc. Like this led me on a path of authenticity, So this was a great little vessel and catalyst for me to really observe in my reality what was just part of my experience, because it was familial, it was familiar, even though it was inauthentic. And so I
Mm.
think truth is a path to abundance as well. And it's like, so where are we really not honoring that deeper instinct for truth in our lives?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, yeah, so many things that you said, both of you. I think definitely like the nervous system. Actually, that's very big. I've actually been looking into it lately.
Yeah,
Cause
just on
yeah.
that quickly, a great way to
Mm.
frame it, which I think Sarah Bolden said, she said, we live the lives that our nervous systems have the capacity for.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I think that's very true. I think that is very true. And also it cripples us when we don't have it in check. It can really, really cripple us because that's when you feel very stressed, you feel tired, all kinds of things can happen. Um, I feel like, and it's very hard to focus and have the energy. Your energy gets like drained out if your nervous system is, completely, I don't know what the word is because obviously I'm not, you guys would know.
Dysregulated,
Dysregulated.
dysregulated. But
Thank
and,
you.
and and the other thing is, like, very often this is true for me,
Mm.
sometimes, like, we can feel sluggish and fatigued and tired when it comes to doing the thing that we're meant to be doing.
Oh
When we
yeah.
finally, right? And
But
so
it's not a bad
why
but it's
is
not a bad tiredness. It's just what it comes with the job. Everything, like a podcast, even if you can delegate to people, it's still work intensive.
Yeah, but what
You
what I
still
mean what I mean is, when it comes to doing the thing that's really going to move the needle forward in your life, even say you set the time aside, you have the project, you sit down, then very often we're overcome with this sluggishness and this tiredness. And like, this is also a result of these unconscious scarcity programs where it's like, I'm not good enough to do this. I'm not good enough to take the next step. I'm not worthy What would it mean if I have to show myself on social media and present myself in a new way and risk being judged by the people around me and challenge the status quo of how people I know perceive me? And so we feel tired, right? Because unconsciously there's these fears when it comes to what it would mean, like I said in the beginning, if I actually did succeed.
Yeah. Is it like I think actually someone told me about this. An NL, I think it was an NLP practitioner therapist that one of a coping mechanism. A lot of people have different coping mechanisms. Right? For example, it
Mm-hmm.
could be distraction or numbing. Like they could have numbing by watching Netflix all the time.
Yeah.
Another one where the brain makes you think that you're tired and you're always sleepy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like a stress response. So I don't know if that's what you're referring to as well, like
It's related. Yeah. I
where
definitely think
like the
it's, yeah.
programming. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
very
That
interesting.
would be a little bit more in like a dorsal vagal response if we're looking at the nervous system. If you have like sympathetic, which is fight or flight, ventral vagal, which is one part of the why am I forgetting, the parasympathetic nervous system, is more like social engagement and connected and neutral and kind of present, and then dorsal vagal would be more in the freeze response, but like a bit of tiredness and fatigue and checking out would fall in that realm more
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
So again, everyone is it's different based on their own system, their own conditioning, their own trauma, etc.
Mm-mm. Yeah. No, that's very interesting. And I think, I mean, I this is, I think also things change sometimes with time, right? Everyone has different um experiences in their life and the way they do. I yeah, very much used to be the fuck it person. Like I've you know left jobs and followed my heart and stuff like that. So I have a whole um bunch of years of following my heart, but financially I never I was not really good with money. And so things have sort of like, it has almost given me like this real scarcity mentality that I need to work on, because um I'm much better now with money and understand money much better. But I think it's like there's a lot of things going on, obviously, and that's it's not relevant to the episode, because obviously this is not like a coaching or therapy session. But I think definitely there's a lot of things to be said about what you were saying about what you do also with the time at work. Like I know, like I've definitely made it. I definitely know that I'm learning things there. I'm learning a lot, and I'm trying to make the most of it. But there's definitely a part of me that it's like, ugh, don't want to go into more. But
Yeah.
I think what has been your biggest challenge for you guys to leave things behind and to go and do what you meant to do, which is what you're doing today.
Um, what's my biggest challenge in that regards? I mean, I think ultimately the challenge was navigating different people's projections of my choices, but I think I was very fortunate even before I knew human design, like that I was in tune with my own inner authority, like I honored and moved more towards things that excited me, that lit me up, and I moved away from things that weren't exciting. But then I gave myself some time emotionally. I didn't want to rush into any decision. And I'm not saying this is the case for you, but fuck it can be a trauma response for some people. It depends on the situation. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think, there definitely were financial things at first, but I had made certain decisions that allowed me to kind of save money. Like I was saying earlier, that first part of saving money that then allowed me some freedom. So I was
Mm.
fortunate in that regards, because I understand, I have compassion that it can be a little bit more challenging for me. I had put myself in a position where I was saving some money because on one level, I wasn't saving it to hoard. I was saving it because I knew there were other things that I might want to use it for later on. Travel and learning and education, those are high values of mine.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
but there's definitely emotional challenges. Like I moved from New York City to Los Angeles in 2013, initially because I wanted to continue my acting career. And I left comfort and I did leave financial security there. I left my friend group. I left family. I left the path. And so you jumping into the unknown. And so, you got to deal with what's going to come up, what's going to be present. And so I was grateful at that time. I was off coffee and off sugar and off these substances that, while it was not easy, like the saying goes, the only way out is through. is
Yeah.
through it. And so it's like
Yeah.
I had to be real and accept reality and deal with like friends of mine making fun of me, being like, "Oh my God, he was on this certain path, and now he's living in his friend's little closet on an egg crate pad." That's because
Mm.
I didn't care, and I knew that I wanted to just be doing things that I wanted to be doing. But at those points, I didn't know the ultimate end result. I didn't know that it was going to lead to like something 10 years down the road. I
Yeah.
just knew that I didn't want what was there and that it didn't feel right. And the time came where I had to make a new choice. And with each new choice, you're going to deal with different things. So whether it's your parents thinking you're crazy, which I dealt with, I have Greek parents, you know,
Mm.
most first generation kids in the US, they like stay close to home or they take over the family business. I didn't do that. And so, you know, you're dealing with projections from other people, you're dealing with some financial insecurity and confusion. But that brings up this whole topic of certainty and uncertainty. I think those that ultimately go after their dreams and are more fulfilled have a little bit more of an ability to navigate uncertainty and to sit with uncertainty and to sit with the discomfort that uncertainty brings, as opposed to just certainty and security. And so, you know, in my journey, there was a lot of that, you know, and also I've had some security. You know, I've had some financial, you know, backing from money that I've saved that had made it a little easier. But even
Mm.
then, there are people who have lots of money and they don't go after their dreams. So
Yeah.
again, it's situational based on the individual.
Yeah. It's also like how much you can tolerate, right? Like
Yeah.
your threshold.
But
Hmm.
and like you have to think of your personality. Some people have a little bit more of like fuck it. Like in that way, like I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. Other people they don't. Again, it depends. What family did you grow up in? You know, what was the conditioning? Like I come from a lineage. My dad left Greece with nothing, and he was a merchant marine for 10 years. So that's like in my bones.
Mm.
You know, they may not have agreed with me going on my own journey because it's different, but like that was part of me. My parents left. My parents left their country, left comfort, you know, and they went in search of new opportunities and a new life. So on some level, that's like, you know, in my blood.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
How about you, Joel?
Um, yeah. Well, I guess in my scenario, I think my gene key life work is gene key 14. And I think this can speak into,
What is
for
that?
any
Is that for the
so
human design or?
so gene keys is a different system to human design, although its
Okay.
roots are in human design. And Richard Rudd, the founder of the gene key system, came from the
Oh, the
School of
gene
Human Design.
keys. Yeah,
Gene keys.
I sound like as if I know, but I don't.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. Mm.
Yeah, so my in the shadow of my life's work of Gene Key 14, it's described as compromise. And this has basically manifested itself as settling for less than one's potential, feeling a lack of personal power and self-worth. And it leads to like stagnation and dissatisfaction. And the
Mm.
way that this emanated in my life is that I grew up quite comfortable. So my dad also was a first generation immigrant. He was born in Jerusalem, Palestine. He became very successful in Australia. He ended up, in fact, creating the largest independent concrete manufacturing business in the Southern Hemisphere.
Wow.
It's a crazy story.
Mm.
And so for me, it was throughout my life, like I was the way that my karma played out is like almost bypassed the necessary steps to discover my own power and to reach self-reliance. So I left the nest quite late in that regard, and I kind of handed over my power to this belief that I'll always be looked after. My life trajectory is always set out for me. I'm just going to work in a family business, etc., etc. And the challenge was, as I continued to grow older, was the realization that I just didn't want to be doing this. I didn't want to be in this environment. I didn't like what I was doing. I didn't enjoy it. And I felt as though I was compromising on my true potential and what I'm really capable of. And I never really gave myself the container or the time to discover my competence. And the competence is the gift of the 14th gene key. It's how you get from the shadow to what Richard calls the city. And the city is basically the higher expression of this gene key, which in my instance is bounteousness or prosperity. And it's crazy to think about how this actually plays out in one's reality. So the challenge for me was recognizing my self-worth and my potential enough to be able to reject the incredible gifts that were given to me in terms of
Mm.
financial stability and financial safety. And when things came to a head enough because I was not emotionally satisfied and I felt as though I was being used and I felt as though my talents were being wasted and being taken for granted at the point in that day in the factory where me and my dad had a massive blow up and every single person on that factory floor heard it. It was very intense. I told him basically, fuck you, I'm out. And I
Mm,
walked away. Like that was a very clear rite of passage and turning point in my life, which led me down this path of discovering my competence, which ultimately, leads to prosperity, and that also emanates in different ways within my life. So, for me, it's definitely that self-worth piece, properly leaving the nest, being on my own, having to feel, what comes with choosing to be a self-responsible individual. And, will I fly or will I fall?
mm.
Yeah.
It sounds like from both of yours, even though like on the outside it looks different, you both had to leave like the identity that you had almost because it didn't fit with your surroundings and it didn't fit with, your heart and your authenticity.
Well, yeah, for sure.
I
Mm,
Like
mean,
definitely on
I think
multiple
that's
levels.
constant throughout one's life. I think
mm,
to some degree we're always shedding skin, right?
yeah,
And that this is the cosmic principle of the archetypally it's presented as the Ouroboros, which is the snake eating its own tail, so to speak. This is a theme which is prevalent within the macro and the micro of this experience. And so, like for those that choose evolution and so choose growth, it's constantly shedding one's own skin and having to morph and
yeah,
having to evolve.
mm, yeah, yeah. No, for sure, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's yeah, so much goodness in what you are both saying. I just to round up on that one, like, don't you feel that sometimes also like you can feel like as if you go back home or you see your friends or that there's a bit of a disconnect and it's only very few that can you really have like a deep connection with it. You had it from the get-go, but you there's so much change even with like maybe like recent friends of like 5, 8 years, 10 years ago. There's like a change because you grow so much, like you
Yeah,
can't really
of
connect with them.
course. Yeah, I mean that's definitely the case. And
Yeah,
like you connect to people with differing degrees and differing intensity. It's not about completely rejecting the
no,
past or whatnot, but naturally, as you go on this journey, like I mentioned earlier, as within, so without, as you change and as you evolve, your outer experience is going to shift as well. And that comes with change of friends, change of scenery, change of circumstances, etc., etc. As
yeah,
your values shift, as your self-esteem shifts, as all these things evolve, like the outer experience has no choice but to give.
And also, like, what are you relating to people on in regards to, I don't have many friends I'm still in touch with from, my
yeah,
youth or
mm,
from, junior high school and high school. We've just kind of gone on different paths. There are a few people that I feel connected with.
yeah,
There's some that maybe went on a more alternative journey or traveled a lot, and so we just can relate differently. But there are also other people that maybe uh, chose a different path, but they have a great heart and they're good people, and I can connect with them to that degree. I might not
yeah,
get into super esoteric subjects and dive into like my views on personal development and psychology, but I could meet them where they're at.
yeah,
And
mm,
so, yeah, I mean, but yes, sure, definitely, even in the last 4 or 5 years with everything happening in the world, I would say a lot of the people that I'm giving more of my time and energy to these days are people that I've become friends with over the last 4 or 5 years.
yeah, yeah. I think it has done a lot to people. The anything from 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Is I want to change topic a little bit. I just want to talk about your podcast.
Okay.
There's because with all the topics that you cover on your podcast, a lot of them are challenging our reality. How? I mean, you may not find that. That for me. It does like some of those topics for sure will challenge reality. How do you stay sane?
How do I stay sane?
Yeah.
Well, I trust myself. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I trust that I have an inner compass and an intuition that's good, that guides me to this information that then resonates as truth to me. I can only speak for myself, and then like we will maybe invite someone on or have a conversation. But this is how my journey has been from day one with, let's say, alternative research or getting into subjects that challenge the status quo, is that there's something in me, and I don't know where I got this from. This is where, there's all sorts of explanations. We could talk about human design, gene keys, etc. But that just, I have like an inner bullshit detector
Mm.
that's just with me, whether it's meeting certain people or coming across a book or having a certain ideology and then coming across something new and then being like, oh yeah, this makes more rational sense and this is more aligned. And that's the process. Again, it goes back to what we said. Oh no, this is more true, this is false, this is more true, and then the process continues. So I mean, there's never someone that we have on the podcast that we have no idea what they're about, and then
No.
they just share information with us, and then Joel and I are like, oh my god, our worlds are shattered. Like,
Yeah.
these are subjects that we know about, and while we may not agree with every single thing every one of our guests says, we want to expose our audience to certain things, at
Yeah.
like, just like German New Medicine, like the research and the work of Dr. Hummer, a brilliant man, that understood the functioning of our biology in a way that you know that shatters conventional paradigms and alternative paradigms. And so, these, we like having these kinds of conversations, and that's what we ultimately do, is we have the conversations we want to have, and some
Yeah.
people resonate, some people don't, and we know they're going to challenge people's views, because it's not like everyone knows the stuff that we're having on our podcast,
Yeah.
that like the topics we're covering.
Yeah, I wrote a post about 3 weeks ago, which I've seen floating around the internet without my name on it, a fair bit. But it says, a message to truth seekers. Your goal is not to violently shake as many people as possible from what you perceive as their slumber. Your goal is to cultivate a personal core within you of unmovable steadfastness towards the higher path of truth and authenticity. The disheveled conspiracy theorist is the old paradigm. The grounded, connected, emotionally intelligent, and highly inspired individual who knows who they are and is on a mission to retrieve their gifts and step into creative self-actualization is where the real ones are headed. And I think if we're feeling like we're moving away from sanity and we're feeling ungrounded and we're feeling right, then it's like, where am I out of balance? Because this is a dance between, again, opposites, but in this instance, the external world and the internal world. Like, the external world can get as crazy as it wants. It doesn't mean that I have to by any means whatsoever. So it's like, where am I rejecting my inner world, and how can I bring more balance if that's the case in my experience?
Mm.
And I think creativity is an amazing pathway, to cultivating balance and to just having greater all-round well-being, because we're making proper use of the vital creative energy which is animating, our entire being. And we're all creators first and foremost. And, for me, the perfect cure for, someone feeling what you're expressing is asking yourself, am I appropriately using my creative energy? And if not, how can I? And it doesn't have to be a perfect creation by any means whatsoever. But how do I get that flowing?
And when you say
Yeah, and
creative
this,
energy, you mean just any creativity?
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. Any way in which you personally feel inspired by the muse to express your creativity, that can be if you like drawing, when's the last time you drew? If you like
Mm.
singing, doesn't have to be a perfect singer, but maybe you go write a song. Maybe you vocally express in ways that you haven't expressed before. It
Yeah.
can be a static dance. It can just be moving awkwardly, like maybe just honoring the impulses of your body in whichever way it wants to move.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yerasimos, you were saying something, and I.
yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. It's all good.
It was about the creative energy. So
No, no, no,
no,
no.
no.
It's all good.
Yeah.
If it comes
Um.
back to me, I'll say it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. Are you ever sort of like worried about any episode coming out, any topics that you cover, or you just always feel very safe and secure that you just do what you do, and however it's received, it's out of your hands?
Yeah, because I think we like to have a pretty measured approach. I mean, we cover some subjects that I think are a little bit more out there, but
Yeah.
I also I have no responsibility over someone's reactions
No.
and emotions. We do what we do, we get trolls sometimes. We get people who hate on us. We get people who send emails. But like when you're solid in who you are and knowing yourself and loving yourself and on your own journey and your path and purpose, and like they're like you're just you don't care. Now that being said, if someone says something, like I want to take it in and go, is there any truth to it? I'm not I don't dismiss all criticism, but I'm not gonna like sit home and cry at night because someone didn't like our podcast or someone thinks I'm a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I mean, like that's old news. Like this isn't
Yeah.
20 years ago when I was like, challenging 9/11. Like, we're 20 years in.
Yeah.
I don't really care.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we've said before, the podcast is called Here for the Truth, not We Have the Truth. So like we
Yeah.
don't feel attached to every single piece of information that comes out as if we wrote it and our name is co-signing on, every single piece of information or whatnot.
No.
Ultimately, we're a platform that's open to having the conversations. And I think people enjoy hearing fresh conversations through the filter of our own personal discernment. Because even within the conversations that we have in a podcast, like we don't just let the guest have free reign. If there's something that feels intuitively wrong or needs to be questioned, like we're not afraid of pushing back in order to get, greater refinements out of our guest ultimately. And I think it's, that unique dance which people seem to enjoy when they listen.
Yeah, I said, I mean, from the episodes that I've listened to, like, I definitely don't feel that you are like, either of you are like yes man and just, going yes to the guest. Like, you do ask really good questions. And I think what I really, really enjoy, I mean, there's so many things I enjoy about, your podcast. But I think what I really enjoy is that you have a very measured way of approaching things. That's how it feels to me. Like,
Thank
you
you.
have, yeah, you have these guests coming on and you feel very open to them, feels very open to them. And you ask questions, you share your experience. And, I feel like sometimes that's my perception, but sometimes I feel like, oh, I can tell that maybe you feel like that guest went a bit too far in what they were saying, or, or something, or not too far, but like you're just like, interesting, and I
Yeah,
you sort
yeah,
of left it at
Yeah.
that.
And
definitely.
also it's
There was
true.
there was a recent episode I think where that
Oh
was the
no,
Yeah.
this
case.
is actually a while back, but
Okay.
but I think that's cool because I feel that it's important I think it's important in a society to have conversations with people you may not always see eye to eye with or agree or whatever the word would be, right? It's
Definitely.
yeah, because it makes it really boring, right? And I think that's not how you grow. And we're such in a very we live in narrowcasting. I don't know if you may have heard this concept. Narrowcasting is from
No,
this,
I haven't.
yeah, the
Mm.
person who came up with it, he passed, I think, a couple of years back. I forgot his name now. But basically, what he was explaining is that, actually, let me just find it because I feel like, especially because he passed, I cannot just take his, I should honor him a little bit. Narrow casting. Basically, let me
How are you
see.
spelling that?
Oh, there you go. So it's like broadcasting, but you put narrow instead of broad. And let me just
Now,
Oh,
Nav Narrow.
narrow
Yeah, I can't
casting.
really say. I can't really say.
narrow.
I've
Yeah,
heard of narrow casting. I
that's
thought you said
it.
like Nawa. I was like, now I
Yeah,
don't
I
know what that
can't.
is.
I can't say ours in English. So
No worries. No, narrow
so
casting.
I
Narrow,
found
yeah.
I found him. So it's basically from the late Baron Jonathan Sachs, and let me see, and also Kassenstein's research. Anyway, it's basically on how now we live in these like little tunnel views. Let me just see if I
Mhm.
can have his actual words.
I like this. I haven't heard of it before.
Yeah, but basically is to say that when Twitter came out, that's when it became really prevalent. When everyone was, for example, in England, they were like, "Oh yeah, Labour's gonna win. Labour's gonna win. Oh no, 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 the Tories gonna win. Because everyone's just in their own echo chamber, and
Mhm.
no one is basically you. The algorithm is just showing you who you agree with, who you're gonna have
Yeah.
more engagement with, and and it hasn't stopped since. This is how it is now, and so basically people are even more emboldened into their views and making people actually even more divided and more extreme. And so the reason why I'm saying this is that we have really lost that ability to have conversation with people you disagree with. I mean, I grew up in Belgium, and
Mm.
you with your friends, I mean, with our friends, we disagreed a lot of times. From the outside it could look like an argument, but first it was just normal. and in Belgium, where I grew up, in the circles I grew up in, it was very normal to have maybe a little bit of a heated situation going on, but you will still sit down and have carry on having your drink, and you either were more assured about your views or you had changed your mind a bit. But there was not an issue with seeing things differently. And back then we didn't have social media and all of that stuff. So I don't know if that was also a component, but I think now it's very important to hear conversations like, that, for example, that
Yeah.
you have on your podcast, of things that you go, oh, well, that's a bit different, or oh wait, or and that you are open to have conversations that challenge you, and you may not necessarily, I don't know how you feel about all the things, but it's like, it's definitely the way that you approach it feels very open, and you're open to hear the other person, and that's why I really, really appreciate it, because I think we need that more role modeled out there.
Thanks, Angie. Appreciate it. I think ultimately it boils down to, us feeling grounded and secure in ourselves, and, not having this self-consciousness about who we are and what we put out there and all the rest of it, that I think fosters that kind of open communication.
And there's also the humility, the good way of using this
Yes.
word, of like, I don't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
There is literally so much knowledge and information and life experience out there. Like, I can't know everything. And I want to give people the freedom to like make up their own mind.
Yes.
So it's just like, are you a curious person? And if you're getting triggered by something, why are you getting triggered? Do you have enough self-reflection to go, okay, this person said something, I got really contracted, I got really hot, my hands started getting all clammy, and I just got like really, 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 really triggered. Like, why did that happen? What did he say? And then what would be my normal habitual response? And then why would I respond that way? And how do I know what I was going to say is true? Like, do people even ask themselves, like, what I'm saying right now, why do I believe it? Where did it come from? Oh, my dad said it once at the dinner table, and I've just regurgitated it for 15 years. Oh, my teacher in sixth grade said it. Oh, I picked up a book here. I watched one podcast. Like, why do you believe what you believe?
Yeah.
I mean, there's an investigative process that I think a lot of people, they don't go on. And then the humility to go, hey, just because it's not on the news and I didn't learn it in college doesn't mean it's a conspiracy theory and false.
Yeah. And I think that word is thrown around way too easily. But I think you're
Yeah.
right. Humility is key. I think definitely. I think I totally agree. Like, we never know the. I mean, I know my truth, and sometimes I'm like, oh wait, what was it again? Sometimes you have to go, wait. You may be challenged and you have to like revisit. But I think, yeah, like, I know what's true for me, but I also know that I don't know the whole truth, and I think that's something, the discernment that people don't do when they feel attacked by other people's views. And it's like, it's only a view. Like, no one's come to your house with a machete and killed your family. Like, we don't need to get that upset over like a
But
different political view and
yeah,
things like that.
when you're so identified with your beliefs and with your views, then the internal experience is that someone is coming with a knife and, stabbing me and attacking me right now. And this is where this work becomes really important.
Yeah. To have a bit more awareness and understanding of
Yeah,
this
awareness.
stuff.
And also, can you be a somewhat detached observer, like especially in social media? I have posts and reels and comments that I like to look at and see how people are interacting with one another, and then be curious about what's happening in me. Oh, this post came up. Oh, do I agree with it? Do I disagree with it? Do I want to challenge it? Why do I want to challenge it? Like, you have to go through this inner process. But ultimately, like, I don't waste my time on things that aren't gonna that don't support me in my highest values. I mean, primarily, sometimes I waste my time. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah, we're
but
not
generally
perfect.
speaking, I try not to, and I try not to like go down rabbit holes that I don't think are gonna move my life forward. I like, yes, I like research.
Or yeah, or like when clarity can't be gained at this specific moment, where like it's still up for debate in the public arena, and so much research and new evidence and things coming out, like maybe it's better to just wait. Like, am I really, utilizing my time in the best way right now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and can you say I don't know? How many people can say I don't know, really, and mean it? I mean, it feels like people have this urge. I got to give an answer. I got to give my opinion. I got to align with my friend group and my family. I don't know yet. I'm still in the process of figuring it out, figuring myself out, figuring this thing that just came out on the news. Like, I don't know yet.
Mm. Yeah.
But you have to know yourself, and you have to have the capacity and be vulnerable and be like unsure and feel secure a bit in the unknowing.
Yeah. I think to give yourself permission not to know.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Definitely.
like that. I like that.
But see that the thing is that the deeper unconscious belief around that is it's not safe if I don't know, or I'm not good enough if I don't know.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Which can be very triggering, right? So,
yeah.
mm. Wow, Jordan Yerasimos, thank you so much. I gonna ask you the same two questions I ask all of my guests.
Okay.
I call them the finishing thoughts. And the first one is, what life lesson do you wish you'd learned sooner?
Nothing.
Hmm.
Well, because
Because you weren't ready for it.
well, no, I just mean
Yeah.
like I like where my life is right now. So like when I'm gonna
Mm.
go back in the past and change something, like I don't. I mean, I'm happy with the progression of my life. Is it perfect? What is perfect? I'm happy with it. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like I learned the lessons that I needed to learn at the appropriate time,
Mm-hmm.
personally speaking. So that's the answer to that question at least.
How about you, Joel?
Yeah, it's a very difficult question to answer, particularly from the higher perspective of, if we're living consciously, like things play out in our lives at the right time. I've learned very, very harsh and difficult lessons in my life, which have caused great pain, to my ego, my personality, whatnot, etc., etc., and decisions from the past, which still cause me great pain. But like ultimately, it's experiencing that pain and experiencing the consequences and the ramifications of not valuing the truth in the way that it should be valued that have led to the formation of the core of truth, which I now nurture, with and regard with great sacredness. So, it's I can't answer that when the gift that I've received on the other side of those lessons, despite the timing of it, has been so magnificent. And this is where I would also agree with Erasmus and say, yeah, nothing.
Mm. Thank you. That's definitely the first time I've had those answers, so that's cool. And then the second one is, what do you not put up with anymore?
Anymore? What do I not put up with anymore? Like relative
People,
to 2 weeks ago, relative to 10 years ago,
However you interpret it.
yeah.
Mm.
What I don't put up with anymore is like giving my energy to places that I don't want to give it, like people pleasing, um, not setting boundaries. Like I set boundaries, like I do things that I want to do. I don't tolerate disrespect. Like if there's a verbal disrespect or action, I tend to call it out pretty quickly. Um, yeah, I mean, I might add something after, but Joel could jump in here if he wants.
yeah, I agree. I don't tolerate people wasting my time anymore. And, one thing in my life, which I guess I think was a theme, which was a major lesson for me, was, subtle, covert, emotional blackmail and gaslighting. And that's something I don't tolerate anymore. And I feel like I've got a pretty good nose for it now.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't tolerate bullshit. Like if I feel like I can smell it and sniff it, like I just don't. I call it for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So um
Yeah. But that's also because of the way you both live, right? It becomes very difficult to put up with it because you.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a process, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I was my essence was maybe what it is to a certain degree, but like, I wasn't as educated in the ways that I am. I wasn't as emotionally mature.
Yeah.
So, certain types of communication, like I won't tolerate, like unconscious communication, um, blaming, like personal responsibility is really important to me. So even in my partnership with my wife, really, we're really good at if a trigger happens, we kind of step away, we figure out our role in it, we come back, we repair, we take responsibility for it, and we move on and we grow from it. Like I
Mm.
would never
Yeah.
tolerate if she was just like blaming me all the time and I was the only one causing issues. That's just me in my partnership. Like that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So and this goes the same in my friendships too. Like there needs to be a level of personal responsibility and accountability and consciousness in my relationships for them to be there, like, or else they'll just no longer be there. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not a teenager. Like I'm a man. I'm an adult that has spent some time working on himself. While I don't have all the answers, and there's always room to grow up until the moment I leave this earth. Like I know what I know, and like it's I'm not going to tolerate shitty behavior and emotional immaturity.
Yeah. And I would add also, like, I don't tolerate parts of me beating myself up for perceived mistakes while I'm in a learning process.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Yeah. 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 That's important.
Mm.
Everything. Yeah, yeah. Honestly, thank you so much to both of you. Before you tell us where people can, listen to your podcast, join your programs, your membership, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us that I may not have given you the opportunity to?
Well, I'm just going to sit here and say that whoever's listening to this, quiet down a little bit, quiet your mind, take a seat on the couch, pay attention to what's coming to you right before you close your eyes and go to sleep at night. The answers are there, they're bubbling up, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pay attention, really pay attention to your inner world and what it's telling you. And if you're not content, if you're not fulfilled, if you don't have peace in your life, what do you need to do in order to get those things that parts of you want? And there's so much free information out there, free knowledge. You don't have to just pay for everything. It's do you have the willingness, and are you going to put in the effort to make the changes that are necessary for you to move closer towards the life that's going to bring you that fulfillment and satisfaction?
The dichotomy of that is that the reality is that for most people, they need to pay for something and they need to feel what comes with making an actual investment for them to value the knowledge and for them to value the change and value the education. Part of the problem is that we're drowning in so much free value and free information, and so we just take it for granted. We don't place the appropriate value on what this thing, is actually can be and how it can be utilized in my life.
Yeah, but
Um,
totally. Yeah,
yeah,
totally. But I 100% agree with that. But I just mean, like, depending on the person, like some of the biggest changes in my life were, okay, sure, a $5 book, and I'm sitting on a bench and I read the book and I have
yeah,
time to contemplate and reflect. Like you don't. Sure, I think it's important to make investments. I've spent thousands of dollars working with coaches, working with teachers, tens of thousands of dollars over the years, that have changed my life. And I've also gotten immense knowledge from a podcast and from taking in information and sitting with it and giving myself the time, not just speeding through it and forgetting about it and moving on.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, I think also like everyone is a bit different, and I think like I know that for me sometimes when there is, I mean, I take a lot of value from free content for sure, like on YouTube and podcasts. But I think sometimes where I've actually gone and paid for something is because I valued that it is, distilled and is sort of like, because I don't need more, I just need the right the right
The
information,
right structure too.
yeah,
It's
and to
done in
also
a
have
certain structure.
the
Yeah.
structure, and then to also to have someone I can, you can contact and say, oh, what did you mean by, like, if there's something that's not clear, that, like, like a coach in there or whatever it is, right, that whatever the program you're doing, but to have someone that you can, so that's what I pay for, is to have that person that I
Yeah,
can speak to, and then the content that's done in a way that's, you don't, because sometimes with YouTube you can get lost, but I've had definitely a lot of really good value with free content. But I think definitely with what you were saying with that, to listen to yourself, um super important. And sometimes I do that thing where I ask the question before I go to bed. I ask my higher self, like, I'll have this question, like, if I something that I can't somehow make up my mind, or that my head and my heart is battling, or I just, confused for some reason, or I don't see the way out, the answer, I'll ask myself that
that's
question before I go to bed.
Exactly. We need teachers, we need systems, we need processes, we need guides, and I think consciously entering into containers and into, with intention can be very, very profound and very,
Yeah.
very important. It has been, at least for my life.
Yeah, and I think definitely to have, this is a theme that you guys have been saying all along as well, is that to know who you are is super important, because there's that thing where sometimes people, they will become, they'll follow, and they'll follow some leaders that are, they don't have the best intention for them, or that are quite destructive. There's a lot of things in the personal development world, but I think it's always about
Yeah.
knowing that you have all the answers. You just need someone to guide you there.
Yeah, for
Sometimes
sure.
we all need a friend, right? We all need someone that's gonna just give us a little nudge and help
And
us.
maybe
And
it was a lot of times we need someone who's maybe 3, 4, or 5 steps in
there you
front of
go.
us on the path, that like
Exactly.
that has maybe gone through some of the things we've gone through and then can shine a light. But
Yeah.
ultimately any teacher, any person you're going to, a mentor, should always bring you back to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring you back to yourself and the uniqueness of who you are, and give you the power and the authority and the confidence and the self-esteem. And when I say give you, I don't mean they're giving it to you. I just mean they're guiding you towards reclaiming that for yourself, so
Yeah.
you trust yourself. Because the decisions you make, Angie, in your life are going to be different than the decisions I make, and how you go about making them may be different.
Yeah.
And so, sure, we can share information and knowledge and education, which is very, very important and foundational. But how do you filter that through your unique being?
Yeah.
That's
Definitely.
what's very important, and and
Definitely.
and that's part of what I'm really passionate about.
Yeah. Definitely never give your power away. Just
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
always like so important. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
run from anyone who proclaims to have
Yeah.
everything figured out and knows all the
Yes.
answers. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. That's what I always say as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Joel and Yerasimos, thank you so much. Please let us know where we can find you, plug all the stuff, everything.
Yeah, cool. Just quickly, if I could answer that question as well, one thing I'd
Oh,
say to
sorry,
those
Joel.
listening,
So, sorry. Of
it's all
course,
right.
yes, please, yeah.
No, that's all right. I think it's just important if people ask themselves, if I was to live 5% more courageously today, what would I do?
Mm,
And I think, this is an exercise which can, bring up profound implications for us if taken seriously. So yeah, in terms of where people can find us, hereforthetruth.com is the home base of every single thing that we do. You can watch over 190 free episodes on our website if you prefer to listen, or available on all major podcast distributors as well, just by searching Here for the Truth. You can give us a follow, and you'll get our episodes. Rise Above the Herd is our 10-week group coaching program. I don't know when this will be released, but round 10 starts next week, and the cutoff date for enrollment is July 31st. But if someone is resonating with what we're saying and feels like they want to do intentional work to grow into the best versions of themselves, then yeah, they can join Rise Above the Herd. Other than that, we have our paid membership community, which is Friends of the Truth. And this place is just loads of fun. If you're looking to connect with, like-minded community who gets it and is on this path of truth and higher values, but also are grounded and humble enough to laugh at themselves and not take life too seriously, then I think you'd really find a beautiful home there. You can press on the membership button at hereththetruth.com, and that'll take you straight there.
Actually, the your episode comes out, if everything goes well, on the 28th of October.
Cool.
Does your 10-week program, it comes back in cycle? Like, is there another date they will be able to join if they were interested?
Yeah, sure. So for this round, the 31st of July is the last date. We'll probably be offering this again towards the end of the year. I dare say November or December.
Yeah, and I guess if they go
Yep.
onto your email list, you'll announce it in there, right? Because I see it
Yeah.
sometimes. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
amazing.
And if they ever go to the riseabovetheherd.co website, if we're running the program, then there's usually a wait list, so they can put their email in and join the wait list as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much to you both. Honestly, really just really, really glad to have had you on, and really enjoy listening. Your answers are never actually really always like what I expect, because you go really sort of deep and high at the same time. So I really enjoyed having you on, and thank you so much for your time and sharing all your wisdom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. It's been a pleasure to have this conversation with you, and yeah, appreciate what you've created here.
And that's our episode. If you enjoyed it, please share it with a friend. It can be a screenshot that you text them, a link, the name of it, any of those will do. If you give a 5-star rating and a review, that really, really helps the algorithm for it to be shared on all the different platforms. And just a little note, please be aware that this podcast is always free to listen to. Any platforms that want to charge you for it are doing so without my consent, okay? This is free. You can listen to it on Apple, Spotify, all of the other regular listening platforms that don't charge you. This is free. So don't let someone charge you to listen to my podcast. Until next time.
Using health inappropriately.